Shana Tova.
Shana Tova.
We begin this evening as Michael Liebmann plays Kol Nidre on the cello.
Oh, guide my steps and help me find the way. I need your shelter now. Rock me in your arms and guide my steps and help me make this day a song of praise to you. Rock me in your arms and guide my steps. Fros aleinu sukat shilomecha ufros aleinu sukat shilomecha. Oh, guide my steps and help me find my way. I need your shelter now. Rock me in your arms and guide my steps and help me make this day a song of praise to you. Rock me in your arms, guide my steps. Oh, guide my steps.
We turn now to page 6 and join in the words of my friend Rabbi Louis Camrus of Cincinnati. In the middle of the page, what an extraordinary gift it is, what a blessing, what a miracle to have been raised by imperfect parents who did their very best, to share our life with a partner no more flawed than we are, to count as a friend one who understands and accepts us most of the time. How brave, how hard it is to be good enough in our ties to one another, to give even when we're exhausted, to love faithfully, to receive with grace the love imperfectly offered to us. Can this night set us free from the tyranny of expectations? Can this night release us from fantasies impossible to fulfill? We resolve this night to embrace the practice of forgiveness, to forgive others who fail to be all we hoped they would be, to forgive ourselves when we fall short of what others hoped we would be. We declare this night that we will cherish goodness wherever it is found and open ourselves to the gifts that are before us. We turn to page 9. It's my pleasure and privilege to welcome Bob and Ellen Katzen to lead us in the lighting of the holiday candles.
Baruch atah Adonai, Eloheinu melech haolam, asher kiddushonu b'mitzvotov, v'tzivonu lahadlik ner shel Yom HaKippurim.
Source of being, eternal our God, you fill the universe with majestic might, teaching us holiness through sacred obligations, giving us the mitzvah of bringing light on Yom Kippur.
Adonai, Eloheinu melech haolam, שהחיינו וקיימנו והגיענו לזמן הזה. אמן.
On Yom Kippur, we are called to fast, to restrain from life's pleasures. The fast that we are called to do is not meant as punishment. Rather, it is meant to help us focus, Now, in truth, I'm not sure many of us by tomorrow afternoon will be able to focus on much of anything other than what we're going to eat to break the fast. But the fast itself is not meant to be a punishment. And our tradition is clear. If for any health reason, food or water is necessary, then it is flat required. And so I urge you, while I know it is our custom, and while I know many of us have this sense of our obligation to fast on Yom Kippur, do not be afraid, do not be embarrassed, do not be ashamed to eat or drink if it is necessary for you. There are many among us, for myriad of reasons, who cannot participate in the fast as fully as we may have preferred. The goal here isn't to punish or exclude. The goal is to elevate. And if we can best elevate by taking care of our bodies, nourishing our minds, our souls, our hearts, and our physical beings, then that supersedes even the call to fast. We turn now to page 15 in our prayer books. Rabbi Leiser survived the death camps and returned to his hometown, Częstochow in Poland. For years following the Shoah, he roamed the streets playing a hand organ. At regular intervals, amid the numerous tunes he played, he would intentionally play Kol Nidre. As he did so, he would look out into the eyes of the children who walked by, looking for a hint of recognition. In this way, he was able to bring many children back in contact with their people. For us too, Kol Nidre is a moment of recognition, a sound that brings us back to our people. In an ordinary year, at this moment, I would invite all of those who have served as the president of our synagogue to join us on the bima to hold the Torah. But the pandemic changes things. And so this year we have asked our immediate past president, Saul Straussman, to stand in for his fellow past presidents. And Saul willingly agreed, even though he did remind me that this was not part of his past president deal that he arranged when he left office. It is a pleasure for me to welcome Saul to the bima, and we invite everyone who is able in body or in spirit to rise now as we prepare to recite Kol Nidre. Which one do you want?
Let's do the one with the shofar.
Got it.
Got it. Thank you.
Stay right there.
Page 16. Or zaru ala tzadik, ul yishre lev simcha, bishiva shel mala ubishiva shel mata, al da'at hamakom, ועל דעת הקהל אנו מתירים להתפלל עם העבריינים.
On page 18, we continue together in the middle. All vows, resolves, and commitments, vows of abstinence and terms of obligation, sworn promises and oaths of dedication that we promise and swear to God and take upon ourselves from this day of atonement until the next day of atonement. May it find us well. We regret them, and for all of them we repent. Let all of them be discarded and forgiven, abolished and undone. They are not valid, and they are not binding. Our vows shall not be vows, our resolves shall not be resolves, and our oaths, they shall not be oaths.
Kol Nidre וחרמי וקונמי וכינויי וכינוסי ושבועות ודאישתבנה ודאחרימנה ודעשרנה נפשתנה דינדרנה ודאישתבנה ודאחרים ודעשרנה מיום כיפורים זה עד יום כיפורים יחרתנה והון כל הון יון שרן בטלים ומבוטלים נדרנה נדרי ואסרנה לאסת ושבועתנה Page 20. ונסלח לכל הדת בני ישראל ולהגר בתוכם כי לכל העם בשגגה סלח נא לעוון העם הזה כי גודל חסדך וכאשר נסעת לעם הזה ממצרים ויד הנה ושם נאמר ויאמר אדוני סלחתי כדבריך.
shall be forgiven, the entire community of Israel, and the stranger who lives in their midst, for all have gone astray in error. Moses prayed to God, as you have been faithful to this people ever since Egypt, please forgive their failings now, in keeping with your boundless love. And God responded, I forgive as you have asked. Please be seated. Next year, I hope that this bima is filled with all of our past presidents. And in 2 years, I know that Allison Yeager is looking forward to joining them as she begins her tenure as past president. But for now, she has a job. She is the president of this synagogue, and she handles the affairs of our congregation with strength and with dignity and with courage, and I could not find a better partner. It's my pleasure to welcome her. She's going to be speaking with us this evening live on Zoom, and it's my pleasure to welcome her to our sanctuary, even if on screen. It's my pleasure to welcome her. She's going to be speaking with us this evening live on Zoom, and it's my pleasure to welcome her to our sanctuary, even if on screen.
Shana Tova. Thank you, Rabbi Feldman.
Live on Zoom, and it's my pleasure.
As Dan said, I'm Allison Yeager, and I'm privileged to be the president of Temple Sinai. As things have changed so dramatically over the past few weeks, I have written and rewritten this so many times. As Dan said, I'm Allison Yeager, and I'm privileged to be the president of Temple Sinai. Every time a new decision needed to be made dramatically over the past few weeks, I have written and rewritten this so many times. As Dan said, I'm Allison Yeager, and every time a new decision needed to be made, what I had written just days earlier became irrelevant. So tonight, I'd like to talk to you about that, change and choices. If you've ever been in my office, you can't help but notice a large sign hanging on the wall that says, "Do not be afraid of change. Be afraid of not changing." Much easier said than done, I know. If you've ever been in my office, you can't help but notice a large sign. August 4th, 2005 was one of the most challenging days of my life. No, it wasn't one of the 3 days I was told I had cancer, nor was it one of the 3 times I stepped backwards off the roof of the Coppers building downtown, rappelling down 22 stories in some sort of twisted celebration of survivorship. It was the day I had finally decided to leave what had become an increasingly abusive, decade-long marriage. One might think it was easy. I was obviously escaping a bad situation, but it wasn't. For me, it was incredibly difficult to make the decision to leave, and even more difficult to actually walk out. Why was it so hard? Because change, even change for the better, is scary. I'm here telling you this some 16 years later, and I'm shaking just thinking about it. That visceral fight or flight cortisol reaction to fear is real, and your body doesn't care if you're making a decision to improve your life or not. It just knows that change is scary. Over the course of this past most bizarre of years, Sinai too has undergone Apparently, we're experiencing technical difficulties. Please stand by. We're going to try this again. Can people hear me? Someone give me a sign. As Dan said, I'm Allison Yeazer, and I'm privileged to be the president of Temple Sinai. As things have changed so dramatically over the past few weeks, I have written and rewritten this so many times. Every time a new decision needed to be made, what I had written just days earlier became irrelevant. So tonight I'd like to talk to you about that, change and choices. If you've ever been in my office, you can't help but notice a large sign hanging on the wall that says, "Do not be afraid of change, be afraid of not changing." Much easier said than done, I know. August 4th, 2005 was one of the most challenging days of my life. No, it wasn't one of the 3 days I was told I had cancer, nor was it one of the 3 times I stepped backwards off the roof of the Coppers building downtown, rappelling down 22 stories in some bizarre, twisted celebration of survivorship. It was the day I had finally decided to leave what had become an increasingly abusive, decade-long marriage. One might think it was easy. I was escaping a bad situation, but it wasn't. For me, it was incredibly difficult to make the decision to leave, and even more difficult to actually walk out. Why was it so hard? Because change, even change for the better, is scary. I'm here telling you this some 16 years later, and I'm shaking just thinking about it. That visceral fight or flight cortisol reaction to fear is real, and your body doesn't care if you're making a decision to improve it or not. It just knows that change is scary. Over the course of this past, most bizarre of years, Sinai too has undergone major changes. Rabbi Karen Corbin, Drew Barkley, and the entire staff performed near miracles week after week to keep us connected to Temple Sinai, even as we were all doing our best to stay safe at home. We are fortunate to begin coming out of this pandemic with Rabbi Daniel Feldman leading us as our new senior rabbi. Despite the unusual and at times surreal experience of conducting a rabbinic search entirely virtually, I truly believe that Rabbi Feldman is the right leader for us right now. He, Melissa, Zach, Jake, and Lizzie have embraced and have been embraced by our Temple Sinai community and our family of families. Speaking personally, I'm blown away by and deeply grateful for Rabbi Feldman's grace, charm, openness, sense of humor, and deep spirit of partnership. As we mark the 75th anniversary of the founding of Temple Sinai in a week or so, I think of Psalm 90, which states that a lifetime is 70 years. By that biblical calculation, Sinai is on the cusp of turning 5 years old. I know we're not all parents, but we've all known a 5-year-old at some point in our lives. And in fact, we've all been 5-year-olds. They are notorious at asserting their independence, for being the I do by myselfers. As adults, we try to guide the children in our lives in whatever direction we think is the right direction, but that doesn't mean they always make the decisions we'd like them to. And that's okay. Let me say that again. It's okay when people we love make choices other than the ones we'd like them to make. We offer our best advice, we make suggestions. Sometimes 5-year-olds get loving suggestions from many people. But in the end, the I do by myselfers are going to do what they're bound and determined to do. Sometimes they follow our advice, sometimes they don't. So what do we do in response? We love and support them regardless of whether they made our preferred choice. I'm here before you on this most sacred evening, asking each of you to continue and grow your love and support of Sinai, perhaps more important now than ever. We need your support as we begin figuring out who our beloved almost 5-year-old will grow up to be. We need you to help guide Sinai through its next phase as we embark on our next 75 years as our family of families. We need you to offer advice, make suggestions, and stand with us. We all want Sinai to be exactly what we want it to be, but I know each of us will love our child, even if the child makes some decisions with which we might disagree. And that's okay. I wish each of you and your loved ones the very best for 5782, and to borrow an expression from Pesach, next year in the sanctuary. Shana Tova.
Allison, we're going to hold you to that for next year in the sanctuary. That means we need to do our part to make sure that we emerge healthier out of this pandemic. For now, we turn back to our prayer books, to page 22 in the Machzor. We invite everyone to rise in body or spirit as we continue with the Baruch Hu.
Together at the top of page 25. Day and night are yours, creative spirit of the universe. The muted colors of twilight, the radiance of dawn. Yours are the spreading wings of light, the deepening shadows of darkness, and ever-changing drama. In the human heart, too, the struggle between darkness and light unfolds. From sunlit heights of generosity, the human heart sinks to the gloomy depths of selfishness. Although we fall, you give us the strength to rise again. You call on those who hurt through word or deed to break free from wrongdoing and return to you. All who hear your call to goodness are embraced. All who reject emptiness and evil find acceptance from you. We come into your presence this night of Kol Nidre, aware that our shortcomings and weaknesses are many, yet encouraged by the promise of your forgiveness, we choose freely the path of repentance, restoring wholeness to our lives and holiness to the world. Baruch atah Adonai, hama'ariv aravim. Blessed are you, Adonai, creator of twilight and dusk.
הוא מעביר יום ומביא לילה, ומבדיל בין יום ובין לילה, אדוני צבאות שמו, אל חי וקיים, תמיד ימלוך עלינו לעולם ועד, ברוך אתה אדוני, המריב ערבים. 26.
Ahavat olam, Beit Israel, Amcha ahavta.
תורה ומצוות, חוקים ומשפטים, אותנו לימדת, אותנו לימדת. על כן אדוני אלוהינו בשוכבנו ובקומנו נשיח בחוקיך ונשמח בדברי תורתך ובמצוותיך לעולם ועד כי הם חיינו ויארך ימינו ובהם נגד יומם ולילה ואהבתך אל תסיר ממנו לעולמים. ברוך אתה אדוני אוהב עמו ישראל. אוהב עמו ישראל.
continue on page 28.
Shema Yisrael, Adonai Eloheinu, Adonai Echad, Baruch Shem, Kevod Malchuto, Le'olam Va'ed.
We continue on page 30, and I invite you to find your seats.
Elohecha b'chol avocha ub'chol nafshecha ub'chol meodecha v'hayu hadvarim ha'ela asher anochi mitzavecha hayom al levavecha v'shinantam levanecha v'dibarta bam v'shivtecha b'veitecha uvlachtecha baderech, uchshokbecha uvkumecha, ukshartam leot al yadecha, ve'ayu letatafot beinenecha, uchtatam al mezuzot beitecha uvisharecha. Leman tizkeru ve'asitem et kol mitzvotai, v'item kadoshim lelohechem. Ani Adonai Elohechem, asher hotzeiti etchem me'eretz Mitzrayim liot lachem le'elohim. Ani Adonai Elohechem.
Everyone say Yasher Koach to Zach Fellman. We continue on page 38. We join together. Truth and faith, these are fundamental to our existence. God alone is their source, and we are Israel, a people of God. Our sovereign saves us from tyranny, redeems us from its violence through countless wonders, from its brutality through great feats beyond measure. We are Israel, a people of God, the giver of life who would not let our feet give way, the maker of miracles for us against Pharaoh, of signs and portents in the land of Egypt, the one who brought our people Israel from its midst to enduring freedom. Page 40.
Mi chamocha ba'elim Adonai, mi kamocha nedar ba'kodesh, nora tehilot oseh eleh, malchutcha ra'uvanecha, pokei hayam lifnei Oshe uMiriam, Zeli hanu v'yamru Adonai imloch le'olam va'ed v'ne'emar ki fada Adonai et Yaakov uge'alo miyad chazak Mimenu, Baruch Atah Adonai. Baruch Shema. God, Yisrael. Amen.
It's my pleasure to invite up Allison Grodin to lead us in Hashkivenu, page 42.
Ashkivenu Adonai Eloheinu Leshalom. Ve'hamidenu lechayim. Ve'hamidenu lechayim. Bless us with peace of mind, O God, as we sleep. And let us awake again to life. Ve'hamidenu lechayim. Spread over us the shelter of your peace. Watch over us and make us whole in the shadow of your wings. Protect us and keep us from harm. Watch over us and bring us home to you. Ashkivenu Adonai Eloheinu Leshalom. Ve'hamidenu lechayim. Ve'hamidenu lechayim.
We continue at the top of page 45. For on this day atonement shall be made for you, to purify you from all your wrongs, and pure you shall be in the presence of Adonai.
כי ביום הזה יכפר עליכם, לטהר אתכם מכל חטאותיכם, לפני אדוני תתארו. יתגדל ויתקדש שמי רבה בעלמא דברה חירותי וימליך מלכותי בחייכון ובימיכון ובחיי בכל בית ישראל הגנה ובזמן קריב וימרו וישתבח ויתהדר וינשא ויתנשא ויתהדר ויתעלה ויתהלל שמי דקודשא בריחו לעילא ולעילא מכל ברכת אבישי ושירתה, תושבחתה ונחמתה, אמירן בעלמה, ואמרו אמן.
Page 46.
שפתי תפתח ופי יגיד תהילתך. Adonai, open my lips that my mouth may declare your praise. 48. אתה אדוני אלוהינו אלוהי אבותינו ואימותינו אלוהי אברהם אלוהי יצחק אלוהי יעקב, אלוהי שרה, אלוהי רבקה, אלוהי רחל, ואלוהי לאה. האל הגדול, הגיבור, והנורא אל עליון, גומל חסדים טובים, וקונה הכל, וזוכר חסדי אבות ואימהות, ומביא גאולה לבני בניהם, למען שמו ויאהבה. זוכרנו לחיים, מלך חפץ בחיים, וכותבנו בספר החיים, למענך אלוהים חיים. מלך עוזר ומושיע ומגן, ברוך אתה אדוני, מגן אברהם ויעזרת שרה. Page 50. אתה גיבור לעולם אדוני, בחיי כל הרב להושיע, מוריד הטל, בכלכל חיים בחסד, מחיי הכל ברחמים רבים, סומך נופלים ורופא חולים, ומתיר אסורים, ומקיים אמונתו לישני עפר. מי כמוך בעל גבורות, ומי דומה לה, מלך ממית ומחיה ומצמיח ישוע. מי כמוך אב הרחמים, מי כמוך אב הרחמים, זוכר יצורו לחיים. ונאמן אתה לחיות הכל, ברוך אתה אדוני, מחיי הכל. אתה קדוש ושמך קדוש, וקדושים בכל יום יחללוך סלה.
We continue on page 53, towards the bottom. And so in your holiness, give all creation the gift of awe. Turn our fear to reverence. Let us be witnesses of wonder, perceiving all nature as a prayer come alive. We bow to the sovereignty of your strength, the primacy of your power. We yearn for connection with all that lives, doing your will with wholeness of heart. Awe-inspiring is your creation, all-encompassing your transcendent name. Page 58.
ותמלוך אתה אדוני לבדך על כל מעשיך, בהר ציון משכן כבודך, ובירושלים עיר קודשך, ככתוב בדברי קודשך. ימלוך אדוני לעולם, אלוהי ציון לדור ודור. הללויה. קדוש אתה ונורא שמך, ואין אלוה מבלעדיך, ככתוב. ויגבה אדוני צבאות במשפט, ואוהל הקדוש נקדש בצדקה. ברוך אתה אדוני המלך הקדוש.
We continue with our prayers using the words on the page or the words in our hearts. You may be seated when you have completed your prayers.
Page 72. Ritzei Adonai Eloheinu Yamecha Yisrael Utefilatam Be'ahava Tkabel Utehil Ratzon Tamid Avodat Yisrael Yisrael Amecha El Karov Lechol Koreav Pinei Elavadecha V'chonenu Shivon Zena Amen. Yishuvcha L'Tzion. Birachamim. Baruch atah Adonai Hamachazir Shechimato Page 76. For all these gifts, God of majesty, may your name come to be blessed and praised, our gratitude, a daily offering until the end of time. V'al kulam. V'al kulam yitbarach v'yiromam yitbarach v'yitromam shimcha malkenu tamid leolam va'ed. וכל החיים יודו חסר נמלאמת נמלא באמת האל ישועתנו ועזרתנו עזרתנו סלע ועל כולם יתברך ויתרומם יתברך ויתרומם שמך מלכנו תמיד לעולם. ברוך אתה אדוני הטוב שמך הטוב שמך
On page 78, we join together in the middle. Peace, profound and lasting, all-embracing. Peace, let this be your gift to Israel, your people. In your goodness, author of peace, bless us and all people, every season, every hour, with the peace that is yours to give. Let us and the whole family of Israel be remembered and inscribed in the book of life. May it be a life of goodness, blessing, and prosperity. May it be a life of peace. Baruch atah Adonai, oseh hashalom. You are the blessed one, the eternal one, source of shalom. We continue on page 82.
We join together in the middle of the page. Our God and God of all generations, may our prayers reach your presence. And when we turn to you, do not be indifferent. Adonai, we are arrogant and stubborn, claiming to be blameless and free of sin. In truth, we have stumbled and strayed. We have done wrong.
Hashamnu, Bagadnu, Gazanu, Dibarnu Dofi, Hevinu, Hirshanu, Zadnu, Chamatznu, Tafanu Shaker. Yatsnura, Gizavno, Latno, Maradino, Niatsno, Sararnu, Avinu, Pashano, Sararno, Kishino Oref, Rashano, Shichatno, Tiavno, Taino, Titano.
Of these wrongs we are guilty. We betray, we steal, we scorn, we act perversely. We are cruel, we scream, we are violent, we slander, we devise evil, we lie, we ridicule, we disobey, we abuse, we defy, we corrupt, we commit crimes. We are hostile, we are stubborn, we are immoral, we kill, we spoil, we go astray, we lead others astray. On page 86, we continue. Al chet shachatanu lefanecha bezadon uvishgaga, v'al chet shachatanu lefanecha b'dibur peh.
The ways we have wronged you deliberately and by mistake, and harm we have caused in your world through the words of our mouths. Al chet shachatanu lefanecha be'imutz halev, v'al chet shachatanu lefanecha b'tifshut peh.
The ways we have wronged you by hardening our hearts, the harm we have caused in your world through careless speech. Al chet shachatanu lefanecha b'chachash u'b'chazav, v'al chet shachatanu lefanecha birchilut.
The ways we have wronged you through lies and deceit, and harm we have caused in your world through gossip and rumor. Al chet shechatanu lefanecha b'flilut, ve'al chet shechatanu lefanecha b'zilzul horim umorim.
The ways we have wronged you by judging others unfairly, the harm we have caused in your world through disrespect to parents and teachers. Al chet shechatanu lefanecha b'vidui peh, ve'al chet shechatanu lefanecha b'honaat re'ah.
The ways we have wronged you through insincere apologies, and harm we have caused in your world by mistreating a friend or neighbor. Al chet shechatanu lefanecha b'chozek yad, ve'al chet shechatanu lefanecha b'masav matan.
The ways we have wronged you through violence and abuse, and harm we have caused in your world through dishonesty in business. Ve'al kulam Elohai slichot, slach lanu, machal lanu, kaper lanu.
For all these failures of judgment and will, God of forgiveness,
forgive us, pardon us, lead us to atonement.
V'yam
chet shechatanu lefanecha b'galui u'v'sater, v'al chet shechatanu lefanecha b'frikat ol.
The ways we have wronged you openly and secretly, and harm we have caused in your world by losing self-control. Al chet shechatanu lefanecha b'gilui arayot, ve'al chet shechatanu lefanecha b'ma'achal v'mishteh.
The ways we have wronged you through sexual immorality, and harm we have caused in your world through consumption of food and drink. Al chet shechatanu lefanecha b'yetzer hara, v'al chet shechatanu lefanecha b'neshech u'b'marbet.
The ways we have wronged you by giving in to our hostile impulses, and harm we have caused in your world through greed and exploitation. Al chet shechatanu lefanecha b'latzon, ve'al chet shechatanu lefanecha b'nitiyat garon.
The ways we have wronged you through cynicism and scorn, and harm we have caused in your world through arrogant behavior. Al chet shechatanu lefanecha b'sinat chinam, ve'al chet shechatanu lefanecha b'tuma'at sefatayim.
The ways we have wronged you by hating without cause, and harm we have caused in your world through offensive speech. Al chet shechatanu lefanecha b'lashon hara, ve'al chet shechatanu lefanecha b'tzarut ayin.
The ways we have wronged you with a slanderous tongue, and the harm we have caused in your world through a selfish or petty spirit. Ve'al kulam Elohas selichot, salach lanu, machal lanu, kaper lanu. For all these failures of judgment and will, God of forgiveness, forgive us, pardon us, lead us to atonement.
On page 98, I want to teach you a little folk song with just two words. Shema, which you know very well from the Shema Yisrael, Hear, O Israel. But the second word isn't Yisrael, it's Kolenu. Kol is our voice, the voice. But Kolenu means our voice, our collective voice. And this is the time in which we ask God to Shema, hear our voice. It's very simple. It goes just like this. I would like every single one at least trying to hum it. Shema, Shema, Kolenu. Shema, Shema, Kolenu. Let's try that much. Shema, Shema, Kolenu. Shema, Shema, Kolenu. It gets a little bit higher. Shema, Shema, Kolenu. Shema, Shema, dying down. Shema, Shema, Kolenu. And then after we sing that, we're going to hear a portion of one of the most magnificent modern cantorial settings. And this is the Shema Kolenu by Max Helfman. But let's sing together as a congregation first, so that God can hear our voice. Shema, Shema, Kolenu. Shema, Shema, Kolenu. Good. Shema, Shema, Kolenu. Shema, Shema, קולנו אדוני קולנו חוס ורחם עלינו וקבל ברחמים וברצון את תפילתנו
On page 99, the words of Rahel HaMishareret, Rahel the poet. Will you hear my voice, you who are far from me? Will you hear my voice wherever you are? A voice calling aloud, a voice silently weeping, endlessly demanding a blessing. This busy world is vast, its ways are many. Paths meet for a moment, then part forever. We go on searching, but our feet stumble. We cannot find that which we have lost. Perhaps my last day is already drawing near. Drawing close are the tears of parting. I will wait for you till my days flicker out, like Rachel waiting for her beloved. We continue on page 106.
כי עליך ואתה חלקנו אנו נחלתך ואתה גורלנו אנו שונאיך ואתה רואינו אנו כרמך ואתה נותרנו אנו פעולתך ואתה יוצרנו תוינו רעייתך ואתה דודנו אנו סגולתך ואתה קרובנו אנו עמך ואתה מלכנו אנו ממירך ואתה
turn ahead now to page 109. When men were children, they thought of God as a father. When men were slaves, they thought of God as a master. When men were subjects, they thought of God as king. But I am a woman, not a slave, not a subject, not a child who longs for God as a father or mother. I might imagine God as a teacher or friend, but those images like king, master, father, or mother are too small for me now. God is the force of motion and light in the universe. God is the strength of life on our planet. God is the power moving us to do good. God is the source of love springing up in us. God is far beyond what we can comprehend. And we continue now with more of our repentance on page 114 and 115. We invite all who are able to rise in body or spirit as we join together in front of the ark for Avinu Malkeinu. Avinu Malkeinu Shema Kolenu.
Avinu Malkeinu, Almighty and merciful, hear our voice. Avinu Malkeinu Chatanu Lefanecha.
Malkeinu, we have strayed and sinned before you. Avinu Malkeinu Chamol Aleinu V'Alol Aleinu V'Tapenu.
Avinu Malkeinu, have compassion on us and on our families. Avinu Malkeinu Kaladever V'Cherev V'Ra'av Me'aleinu.
Avinu Malkeinu, halt the onslaught of sickness, violence, and hunger. Avinu Malkeinu Kalei Kol Tsar Umastin Me'aleinu.
Avinu Malkeinu, halt the reign of those who cause pain and terror. Avinu Malkeinu Katvenu B'Sefer Chayim Tovim.
Avinu Malkeinu, enter our names in the book of lives well lived. Avinu Malkeinu Chadesh Aleinu Shana Tova U'Metuka.
Avinu Malkeinu, renew for us a year of goodness. Avinu Malkeinu Malei Adenu Mibirchotecha.
Avinu Malkeinu, let our hands overflow with your blessings. Avinu Malkeinu Harem Keren Mishichecha.
Avinu Malkeinu, let our eyes behold the dawn of redemption. Avinu Malkeinu, na al teshivenu rekam milfanecha.
Avinu Malkeinu, we pray, do not turn us away from you with nothing. Avinu Malkeinu, kabel barachamim uvratzon et tefilatenu.
Avinu Malkeinu, welcome our prayer with love, accept and embrace it. Avinu Malkeinu, aseh imanu leman shmecha.
Avinu Malkeinu, act toward us as befits your name. Avinu Malkeinu, aseh lemancha im lo lema'anenu.
Avinu Malkeinu, act for your sake, if not for ours. Avinu Malkeinu, en lanu melech ela ata.
Avinu Malkeinu, you alone are our sovereign. Avinu Malkeinu, ptach sharei shamayim litfilatenu.
Let the gates of heaven be open to our prayer. Avinu Malkeinu, shma kolenu, hus verachem aleinu.
Avinu Malkeinu, hear our voice, treat us with tender compassion. Avinu Malkeinu, chonenu vanenu, ki ein banu ma'asim, aseh imanu tzedakah v'chesed v'hoshienu.
Avinu Malkeinu, almighty and merciful, answer us with grace, for our deeds are wanting. Save us through acts of justice and love.
Avinu Malkeinu, chonenu vanenu. Avinu Malkeinu, chonenu vanenu, ki ein banu ma'asim. Aseh Amen. Ki elvanu ma'asim.
Please be seated. Before I begin, let me offer a few brief announcements. First, thanks to those of you who served as greeters this evening, and thanks to the support of Edgar Snyder and an anonymous donor, our musical program has wowed us and stirred us. Services tomorrow morning, the schedule is a little bit different. The Tot Shabbat service, weather holding, I hope, will be in the Rose Garden in a tent, or under a tent, at 9 o'clock. And the morning service will begin here in the sanctuary at 10 o'clock. In the afternoon, all of our services will be online. The Beit Midrash will begin at 1:45. At 4 o'clock, the Mincha service, followed by Yizkor and Ne'ilah, beginning at 5:15. We should have you back at the gate and ready to deplane by about 7 o'clock. We are looking forward to being able to gather more in person as the weeks and months unfold. Our next opportunity for gathering other than Shabbat will be Erev Sukkot services, which will be Monday, September 20th at 7 p.m. On Tuesday, the 21st, the offices will be closed because of Sukkot, and Sukkot morning services that day will be a joint endeavor with Rodef Shalom, and they will take place at Rodef Shalom. I want to take a moment to thank the members of our quartet, Hank Alviani, Guy Russo, Barbara McDonough, and Cheryl Schenfeld Bush, and our accompanist, the wonderful Ellen Keeney. Your music this evening has uplifted us and added greatly, and we all appreciate all you have done. A word of great thanks to Cantor Marshall Portnoy for sharing the Bima, for leading us, and for being such a wonderful example of soulful prayer and of guiding us and teaching us. To Rabbi Gorbin, thank you for all that you do in guiding us and teaching us and helping us to keep our eyes on the future. And to the sound guys in the back who had their troubles but figured it out. Mike McCotch and Jake Bennick and Rob Roberts, thank you to all of them. To both the Pittsburgh Police Department and the Executive Defense Team, we thank you for keeping us safe. And to the members of the temple staff, Judy Lynn Aiello, Nancy Conaway, Sunshine Figlio, Leslie Fleischer, Dan Geiser, Sanjay Gurung, Debbie Haber, Judy Mahan, Tammy Price, Aaron Robinson, and of course, Drew Barkley. Each of you work hard each day to make sure that our temple continues to shine, and I am extraordinarily appreciative of all that you do. Shana Tova, Gemar Chatima Tova, a happy new year, and may we all be sealed for a good life in the new year. Rabbis and cantors often tell stories with their talitot. We who find ourselves leading services regularly somehow also often end up with a significant selection of talesim to wear. And for most of us, each one tells a story. In my own collection, I treasure one that was chosen in Israel by my sister Debbie and given to me by my parents at my bar mitzvah. Another was purchased on a family trip to Israel when I was a teen and becoming more serious about my Judaism. A third was a gift from Melissa at our wedding. And I have a talit which was my great-grandfather Harry Fellman's talit, heavy in wool, made in his childhood home of Lechovitz in Ukraine, and brought to the United States with him when he was just about 19 or 20, in about 1895. Each of those has power and love and comfort woven along with the colors and fabrics, and each in its own way offers a unique embrace each time I place it on my shoulders. The talit I'm wearing this evening is among the newest in my collection, though it is hardly new. This talit was given to me just a few years ago by my dear friend Susie Drazen and her family. The talit belonged to her late husband, Rabbi Paul Drazen, who was my childhood rabbi, my teacher, my mentor, my friend, my colleague. Paul acquired this talit when he was a young new rabbi at Bethel Synagogue in Omaha in the early 1980s. He wore it whenever he wore a robe, which meant it was mostly his high holiday talit, just as it is for me today. Paul served in Omaha for 20 years before working for the conservative movement. His last job was as an extended interim in, of all places, Syracuse, New York, where I was serving at the local Reform Synagogue. For 3 years, we were community partners, bringing our two synagogues together for study and celebration. I remained convinced that it was easier for me to learn to call him Paul than it was for him to call me Rabbi Feldman, though I know we both took great pride in each other's accomplishments. Whenever I place this talit on my shoulders, I can feel the warm embrace of my rabbi, gently encouraging me, pushing me to try new things, establishing a high bar and then moving it higher yet. He was the very best of what a rabbi can be, and though I miss his wisdom and guidance, wearing his talit each high holy days brings him into my life anew each year. One of my favorite teachings from Paul came when I was in college. I was studying Jewish texts with him, wrestling with the idea of pursuing the rabbinate. Like many young idealists, I was consumed with the notion of consistency. I will never forget sitting in his study, together poring over a text, and schreien Gewalt about consistency. Finally, almost in exasperation, he looked at me in the eye and said something like, "Daniel, consistency is a 20th century hang-up. Get over it." He was right for so many reasons. The burst of scientific knowledge in the 20th century convinced many of us that we could find consistency everywhere in our lives. Scientists and engineers and doctors and dreamers and builders figured out answers to so many challenges. Those answers are wonderful, and they're worth celebrating. But even the greatest of science and philosophy still wrestle with some of the biggest questions in life. As Paul taught me, Judaism embraces those moments the most. At the times when inconsistency of life feels all-consuming, Judaism provides meaning and understanding, helping us through dark times when life doesn't make sense as we think it should. As we confront the year just ended, still consumed by a pandemic, still more isolated than any of us might desire, this Yom Kippur calls us to take an accounting of who we are and who we wish to be. This evening, let us consider the lessons of the pandemic, the consistent call of change we confront, and the need each of us feels to be fully present in the unparalleled circumstances new to each of us. A brief aside, I wish I could tell you I knew whose model is more correct right now. Part of me, as a historian, says that we are like Churchill at El Alamein, noting the end of the beginning phase of the ordeal. And part of me says that we are like Eisenhower just before D-Day, finding strength as we begin the end phase of this worldwide torment. Our own David Liebmann wrote about this question recently. Regardless of which spot more resembles our current conundrum, the call of Yom Kippur rings loud and clear for all of us. We can and we must learn from our shared experiences so that we all emerge stronger. This past year and a half have taught us about life with limitations. None of us has been able to live as we did. None of us has known the luxury of daily life without worry. We've watched as too many have suffered, too many have been lost. We have witnessed too much politicking. We have survived attacks on science and facts. And yet, lamrot hakol, in spite of it all, for so many of us, pandemic life has had at least some bright moments. The pandemic may have limited our interactions with others, yet many of us have been able to spend more time with our immediate family members. We have not been able to enjoy cultural activities as we once did, yet many of us have written, made art, read, or created in innumerable ways. Those blessed moments of creation need to become permanent in our lives. And how many of us have used the pandemic time to dream. Certainly, we've all dreamed about living either pre-pandemic or post-pandemic, but how many of us have allowed ourselves the gift of really dreaming, of real change, real growth as a result of this unforeseen break in our lives? If nothing else, the pandemic has reminded us that the only constant in our lives is change. Judaism recognizes the constancy of change. Judaism provides a system of beliefs and actions, thoughts and works which help us. They help us to navigate through the stormy seas of change. While we share a dream and a promised land, we are also a people wandering. While we share Torah and Talmud in a library overflowing with texts and commentaries, we also share a commitment to asking more questions and finding new answers, to working our way through modern problems creatively. Our tradition disdains sitting still. We Jews are a people of movement, of growth, of change. As a rising junior in high school, I attended debate camp one summer at Augustana College in Sioux Falls, South Dakota. Yes, it was fun to live on campus for a few weeks and experience dorm life. And yes, it was just as dorky as it sounds. I do not even recall the topic we were debating that summer, but I do remember wandering the stacks of the library and somehow finding my way to the small section of Judaica. One book jumped at me that summer, and it has remained a favorite. Rabbi Joshua Loth Liebmann was a rising star in the Reform movement in the middle part of the 20th century. He lived in Boston, where he was the rabbi of Temple Israel, and was heard nationally on all the networks. He served as a guest preacher at Harvard and Dartmouth and Vassar and Wellesley and more. He died young at the age of just 41 in 1948. His first book, Peace of Mind, was a national bestseller. But it was his second book that I found that day in South Dakota all those years ago. Called Hope for Man, Liebmann describes the Jewish path toward finding and creating hope in life. Liebmann suggested that we need to be brave enough to accept our imperfections, willing enough to develop a mature conscience, strong enough to develop courage, wise enough to adopt a long-range scale of values, and most of all, open enough to love. Rabbi Liebmann wrote, "If we keep these 5 ways of emotional maturity steadily before us, we shall be able to affirm that life is worth the struggle. It is worth it in its own terms and because it gives us the possibility of making those terms better for the infinite generations yet to come. Suffering we shall certainly undergo. Failures we shall certainly encounter. Tragedy will often be our lot. Yet we can create an unconquerable human spirit that proclaims, in spite of it all and through it all, that life can be made worth living. There is hope for humanity." Rabbi Liebmann's ideas read like a quintessentially Jewish prescription for surviving a pandemic. We Jews know from distress and difficulty, and we feel and live. We hope and we love. Were he alive today, Rabbi Liebmann might tell us that we must begin with self-acceptance, then work at developing maturity and courage in the midst of fear and chaos, then connect even more with our Jewish tradition, and finally embrace the overpowering and all-encompassing role of love in our lives. In a sense, Liebmann teaches us to do 2 things: accept who we are and adapt and change to make things better. These ideas are not Liebmann's alone, for they serve as the very foundation for living a Jewish life. Judaism embraces the dual needs of humans to accept who we are and what we've inherited, along with the need to grow and learn and change. Judaism encourages ancient connections and modern interpretations. Judaism's history, often filled with boundaries and exclusions, remains incomplete without its present, a faith welcoming to all, accepting of all, holding equality as a core value. Ours is a tradition and a faith which invites us to take a time machine into the past, while at the same time building a new future filled with new understandings. From the moment of giving and receiving Torah, we Jews have embraced the belief that multiple views of our faith, multiple understandings of our faith can be correct at the same time, that no one group has a corner on truth. Ours is a tradition which embraces change with love, which recognizes that each new generation must discover its own path forward. An example: for thousands of years, rabbis like me stood and quoted sages and scholars as they tried to teach their congregations. All of the preachers and the teachers and all of those quoted were men. Today, thankfully, we recognize a much broader understanding of gender. We are this year beginning to mark the 50th anniversary of the ordination of women as rabbis, and we are being led now by the third generation of female rabbis. Even more, we are now being led by the first generation of non-binary rabbis. Our Jewish world has begun to recognize new truths, and someday soon, I pray, sermons will be filled with wisdom from a wide variety of sources, and not the singular male voices of the past. Our world, as closed as it has felt during the pandemic, continues to open in new and exciting ways. We are becoming more aware, more accepting, more present. The path forward leading us out of the pandemic and into a bright new world begins with this heightened understanding. Tonight, as we confront our choices and actions, our vows and our promises, we are called to be fully present. Some of us are physically in the same space, and some of us are sharing cyberspace. On this Kol Nidre Eve, we are called and we must respond in one voice. Hineni, here I am. Ani po, I am here. Tonight we have chosen to return to our faith, to account for our actions, to accept ourselves as we are. Our presence speaks volumes as we join with Jews the world over and throughout history in marking this moment in time. Instead of seeing all that we missed over the past year, let us begin with who we are and what we achieved. We faced the unthinkable, a worldwide pandemic, and together we are surviving. We've been isolated and separated, yet on this night, at this hour, we are together and we are unified. We may not have achieved everything possible, but we have done our best, and we remain committed to doing even better. Even in times of distance and loneliness, we have remained a community. We have done our best to stay connected, to reach out, to call, email, text, Zoom one another. We have attended celebrations and memorials, keeping our distance, yes, but making sure our presence has been felt by others. At the dawn of the new year, on this night of acknowledging and atoning, we renew our commitments to ourselves, each other, our families, our temple, our community, our nation, our world, and our God. We have learned over the last year just how much our presence can mean to another. Going forward, let us remain connected to ourselves, to each other, to our families, to our temple, our community, our nation, our world, and God. In the coming months, our Sinai family of families will return to some sense of normalcy. I believe and I know that the day will come when we can safely gather fully. The time will come someday when we can remove these masks and we can discover them in a pocket and say, wow, I remember wearing that once. And when that time comes, we will look back and recognize that our community carried us through these dark times. Our ability to be who we really are, our willingness to reach out to another, to show up either virtually or physically, allowed us to endure and emerge stronger and more filled with sanctity. Someday soon, when the pictures are all hung in my study, you will see a simple sign hanging above the doorway. It says in Hebrew, Da lifnei mi ata omed, know before whom you stand. Those words guide me as a rabbi and as a human. I place the sign above the door so that I see it whenever anyone enters the room, or even when I look up while I'm sitting alone. Da lifnei mi ata omed, know before whom you stand. One of Temple Sinai's greatest attributes, and one that I've found powerfully compelling, was and is this congregation's understanding of that line from Talmud. Appearing in Brachot 28b in a conversation about caring for each other and attending the house of study, the words Da lifnei mi ata omed, know before whom you stand, so clearly fit the attributes of our community. Ours is a temple filled with respect and care and study and love, just like the study hall mentioned in Talmud. The Baraita, the story in Talmud wherein these words appear, comes just after a discussion of a certain Rabbi Nechunya ben Hakama. As he exited the study hall each day, he prayed, saying, I give thanks before you, Lord my God, that you have placed my lot among those who sit in the study hall, and that you have not given me my portion among those who sit idly on street corners. I feel those words of Rabbi Nechunya each time I enter our synagogue. I hope you do too. May the new year find us living Rabbi Nechunya's words, giving thanks for being a part of this community, being strengthened by it, giving of ourselves so that the love we share in this place will bring us to a place of peace and health and well-being, and will long endure. Ken Yehi Ratzon, may this be God's will. Amen. It's my pleasure now to welcome Ann Martindale Williams, who will play Kol Nidre for us. I'm glad she played after I spoke and not before. A brief word about a couple of things tomorrow. Our Beit Midrash will begin at 1:45. We have a couple of very interesting things that I want to draw your attention to. First, in the first hour, our own David Johnson will be doing interviews with 4 different people. It will be broadcast live on the Zoom. They'll take place here, talking with each of them about their own Jewish journey, their connections to Judaism, their connections to our synagogue, and we hope that this will become an annual part of our Beit Midrash, and that soon, hopefully next year, we'll be able to be in person and watch as David interviews them one-on-one in person rather than on screen. So we invite you to tune in tomorrow. That will be at 1:45. At 2:45, Rabbi Sarah Perman will be teaching a class about her experiences in Shanghai, and Rabbi Larry Friedman will be teaching a class. I have no idea what Rabbi Friedman's teaching about. On tshuva, the limits of tshuva. Forgive me, for I have forgotten. Is that still within limits or not? All right. And, pardon?
You have to wait till next year.
Next year, yeah. We'll put it on the list. And we have a third option, which will be led by 2 of our social justice leaders who will be talking about voting rights and redistricting as they pertain to the state of the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania, and our role as Reformed Jews in making our voices heard. So some wonderful options to choose from tomorrow. And then afterwards, in the afternoon service, we're also beginning a new thing with our teens. Our teens are going to be leading us in the book of Jonah in a radio drama of sorts. So they'll be seated around a table, so you'll be able to turn on the Zoom and watch them as they teach us the book of Jonah. Promises to be a wonderful thing. Hopefully in years to come when we're in person, we'll be able to have some props and act it a little bit more, but for this year, a radio drama will do. For now, we turn to our prayer books to page 116. We invite all who are able to rise in body or in spirit as we join together in Aleinu L'Shabeach.
עלינו לשבח לאדון הכל, לתת גדולה ליוצר ראשית, שלא עשנו כגויי הארצות, ולא שמנו כמשפחות האדמה, שלא שם חלקנו כהם, וגורלנו ככל המונם, ואנחנו קוראים ומשתחווים ומודים לפני מלך מלכי המלכים הקדוש ברוך הוא, ונאמר והיה אדוני למלך על כל הארץ ביום ההוא יהיה אדוני אחד ושמו
Please be seated.
To life everlasting.
As we think of all those who have died at this time in years past, those who have died in the past year, all those whom we love and whom we miss on this Yom Kippur, invite you to rise in body or in spirit as we recite the words of the mourner's Kaddish. Yitgadal v'yitkedash shemei Rabbi, page 122.
Amen.
Ve'alma divrach chirutei v'yamlich malchutei. V'chayechon u'vyomechon u'v'chaye dechol Beit Yisrael. V'agalau v'zman kariv v'imru Amen. Yehei shmei Rabba mevarach le'olam l'omei maya. Yitbarach v'yishtabach v'yitpa'ar v'yitramam v'yitnaseh. V'yithadar v'yitalev v'yithalal shmei dekudasham brichu. Le'elam min kol birchata v'shirata, tushbechata v'nechmata, damiran be'alma v'imru Amen. Yehei shlama rabba min shemaya, v'chaim aleinu ve'el kol Yisrael v'imru Amen. Oseh shalom b'mromav, hu ya'aseh shalom, aleinu ve'el kol Yisrael ve'el kol yoshvei tevel, v'imru Amen. May the one who creates peace on high bring peace to all who mourn and comfort to all who are bereaved, as together we say, Amen.
Tzom Kal, Shana Tova, may you be inscribed for a book in the book of life.
Shana Tova.